So, this is what happened this morning. So you send me a text. I'm gonna tell you what happened from my end, okay? And you sent me a text, and you said we need to talk. And I was like, okay, whatever, right? And then I was asleep up until that point, so I rolled out of bed, I turned on my computer, and now Facebook is set to my homepage. Here's what my homepage has looked like for the last week, right? It's been Ferguson riots, Ferguson verdicts, everything like that. I turn it on,
and Jurassic World. You saw the Jurassic World trailer, right?
Yeah, at some point.
Yeah, that was on there too. Yeah.
Or no, well, actually, I didn't get that on my homepage. I just stumbled upon that on YouTube. But
okay.
So for the most part, it's just been Ferguson.
I think that's going to be relevant here. Yeah.
It is, okay. And that's when I realized that this must be what Zach was talking about, and it is the Star Wars.
Yeah.
What do you call it?
The Force Awakens teaser trailer.
Teaser trailer. That's the word, teaser. It's very small. There's not a lot of detail.
It's like 88 seconds. It's like 88 seconds long.
Very short. Designed not to give a lot away. A minute worth of video. Our agreements, our disagreements, our problems, our issues, the things we might like. It's really hard to sort of pin this on the film at this point. Any sort of bad or good.
Yeah, true. Everything in this could be like completely cut out of the film as far as we know, right? Is what you're saying. Yeah. But right now, our initial reactions of what we've just seen. And I've watched it I've probably watched it about 8 to 10 times so far now.
Yeah. I've been trying to actually get as much detail out of it as I could, and there's still a little thing in there that I'm interested in. I'll bring it up later, but before we break it down and everything, I'm just curious what your initial response was to it.
My initial response was, I actually about halfway through, like when it showed the guy running through the forest and everything, at that point in time, I actually had to stop, pause the video, and look to make sure it was real, because I honestly thought it was like a fan-made trailer. Like the whole thing at the very beginning with the guy in the stormtrooper outfit.
Yeah.
The stormtrooper drop ship or whatever. All of that, it looked like it was fan-made. So I was really confused at first. It wasn't till like the second half where you see the Millennium Falcon, the X-Wings flying, that you realize, okay, it's real. You know,
it's legit.
I honestly thought it was
somebody was fucking with us, and this was a bitch to find, because there is just so much fan-made shit out there. It is fucking annoying, and this is my biggest problem with YouTube right here, and YouTube users, is improperly labeling their videos, saying that this is a preview for an upcoming movie, and then it turns out that it's some bullshit that they made on, the most basic shitty program possible. I get that
put in parentheses fan-made or something.
Yeah, like that, or something. It's just it's really annoying when you're actually trying to look for something you have a genuine interest in, and you see nothing but fan bullshit. And there is a lot of fan bullshit for Star Wars, all right? Some of it's good. There's clearly a fan base for that stuff. People like watching the fan shit. It was like the 6th video I clicked on was the actual video. So by the time I actually watched it, I was happy to sit in there and watch it, but I had the same reaction at the very beginning, because we'll kind of get into the specifics here. I don't know the actor's name. Clearly he's already been credited in the film or something. So but we usually we're probably going to call him the black guy a lot in here, because for Star Wars that is pretty damn rare, especially Black Stormtrooper. That's even more rare, I think.
Well, but I think a lot of people are speculating that he's just disguised in a Stormtrooper outfit, kind of like Han Solo and Luke were in Episode 4.
Yeah. And in reality, that's fine. It's fine if he's actually a stormtrooper. Maybe he's somebody mentioned that he's a stormtrooper. Maybe he's a stormtrooper that went AWOL, which would be interesting. That's different. That's something we're not used to. But one thing that all means right there is that they're not fucking clones. And I think that's the biggest hooray for this argument, right?
Yeah, that's huge. Well, but it's like I don't know. I don't know many people that were expecting them to be clones still, because I thought it was just natural, like they had naturally. I think Mr. Plinkett brings it up, like he's talking about all the officers and everything, and he's pointing at them like these guys aren't clones. Why are all the
right? But even when
just...
even in the third film of, you know, the by third I mean episode 3, the titled episode 3, not the actual third film, but in episode 3 we already saw officers that weren't clones. So my thoughts on that were, he's trying, as far as George Lucas is concerned, he's trying to make them clones, and the best way to make that okay without having to replace all the officers in the old film is to say, well, the officers aren't clones because, you know, obviously these clones were bred for combat, and you know, they're essentially cannon fodder, and that's their only purpose. So you know, officers have to go to school and are probably
the thing from episode 4 was, the thing from episode 4 was is stormtroopers had different heights though.
They had different heights. They had
the one that
different.
The
they had different voices.
The head on the door.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Only one. That one guy. Anyway, so obviously nobody ever thought they were clones before. Now, as far as the prequels are concerned, if those films were actually good and they tried to play it off that these were clones, most of us would have our response would have been, oh, well, I didn't realize, you know, I didn't think of it like that, but that's okay, whatever. You know, I think part of the reason that we hate the fact that they're clones is the fact that the first 3 films were such shit. Them being so bad, there's no way for us to sort of accept that. It almost becomes like this purging, you know. You can't accept anything from it because just so much of it was shit. You can't even go, well, them being clones isn't that big of a deal. No, it is now.
Theoretically, the hope is in this in this new one coming out that they won't even mention the prequels. They won't even mention episodes 1 through 3. Hopefully, there's nothing that will tie that back to that, you know, but tie episode 7 back to episode 3, 2, and 1. Hopefully they'll play just off of 4, 5, and 6. I know it's probably improbable, you know, but that's what I'm hoping for, you know.
Okay. Well, that also mentions something that I do want to bring up later, but it's one of the later scenes, and since I feel like we're already in breakdown, so we've discussed, well, did we really discuss the black guy? I guess not.
There has been an awakening. Have you felt it?
He's obviously on Tatooine.
He seems flustered. Something's going on. He's sweaty. He's panting.
Someone in the comments mentioned that there is droid like sounds happening behind him or something like that. So I don't know if there's too much to say there, but just like the angle and the sweeping shot like that, you know, it was way too fan made. Like like that one right there. Instantly, I'm like,
like that was the red flag for me. And the sad part is after watching it about the 8th or 9th time, I realized that it was making me think it was fan made for all the wrong reasons. Like, I think we've gotten so used to Hollywood constantly wanting epicness in every scene, and especially in previews. Every preview has to you know, be focused on such epicness, and everything has to be huge. It's still sort of jarring for me, because every time he pops up into the camera, it just seems like something that a fan would make.
Yeah, that's how a fan would make it, right?
Yeah, that's how a fan would
they'd
have
have
it.
somebody ducking underneath the camera, and then all of a sudden pop up real quick and look around, you know.
So there are a few things. There are a few things about that scene that I did like, though, and obviously it's been no secret. It's shot on site. Obviously, he's there in the actual desert. The sweating could actually be a result of him being out there. I'm assuming they shot it in the summer. I think they did.
Yeah.
I don't really. I'd have to go back and check, but yeah. So that's kind of nice.
The voice over the narrator in there, and I don't know. What did you think? Well, also we got to separate out. He first he talks for that first scene.
There has been an awakening. Have you felt it?
And then we have 3 scenes where he's not talking, and then finally he talks again.
The dark side. And the light.
So just dealing with the early one, he's talking about the Force Awakening, and it harkens onto the title, and we're, I think, both rubbed the wrong way by the title. It's not the greatest title ever. It's not terrible. It's just not something that sounds great to us.
Yeah, right. It's not like when Episode 1 came out, right? Episode 1, when people heard the Phantom Menace, they thought it was a complete joke. Like nobody got it. Nobody thought it was a good title or anything like that. And then this one, while it's not bad, nobody's laughing or anything like that, it is still kind of cheesy-ish, I guess, is what you
It's
say.
on the cheesier side. It's sort of dabbling in we're getting off of what Star Wars is, and onto the basis of focusing, because the Force has always been something that exists within the universe. It's never been the universe itself. We don't need a story with Jedis in it for it to be about Star Wars, right? To exist within the universe. There's not a Jedi under every rock. There's not a lightsaber in every scene. There doesn't need to be. When you start talking about The Force Awakens, we're all looking at you like, what, are we going to be in the mountains the whole time with a bunch of monks sitting around an open fire singing Kumbaya?
So now the next scene, was the next scene
the droid?
Droid, or was it
the very next scene is the droid.
This hurt too. This hurt me. This hurt me because it looked way too cartoony. It looked way too like the physics involved with having a hovering head like that over a ball body.
Yeah.
It just looked so funky.
I've actually went back and forth on this, because my first reaction was, oh, that's kind of, they're obviously trying to sell a product or something. It's a kid's toy. Yeah, it looks like a toy. It comes off that way. The original Astro droid makes sense. The asteroid droid is clumsy. It's not a perfectly designed thing. It's got very specific purposes, right?
Yeah, right. It does. It's supposed to do a job, yeah.
Yeah, it's designed to do a certain number of jobs, and it just happened to be the most available droid and the best choice for, I need to get this message, to somebody who lives on that planet down below. R2-D2 is an iconic image. He is not really a character. He is a prop piece.
No. Right, yeah. I mean, realistically, it's just, I hate that people are trying to do this. They're trying to give them like a soul or something, or say they're, functioning AI and everything like that. And no,
they're still
C-3PO
programmed.
and R2-D2 are programmed. They're not, sentient beings.
We're going to sell R2-D2s, right? It's clear that that's going to happen. There will be R2-D2s on shelves. There's going to be 3 CPOs as well. Yeah. Probably not going to sell as much, but definitely those R2-D2s. And we need to sell people other stuff. We need them to buy the R2-D2s and more, right? So that's what I feel like that was.
Yeah, well, see, this goes back to the whole now this goes back to the Jurassic Park thing with the hybrid dinosaur, right? And right, it was leaked that the only reason they made a hybrid dinosaur is so that way they could sell a toy and have it patented, because right? Anybody can make a T-Rex because that's just a common knowledge, an actual existing animal. But if they make a hybrid animal, they make a hybrid dinosaur, then Jurassic Park, they can specifically patent that thing and make sure that nobody else makes a replica of that dinosaur, you know.
Yeah, because if your kid enjoyed the first Jurassic Park movie and now he's really into dinosaurs, you can go buy him dinosaur toys. You don't have to buy him dinosaurs that have Jurassic Park labeled on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I could definitely see that.
Okay, so but anyways, the next scene though is we finally get a look. We look at the stormtroopers. So, it's them like lined up. They're in a vehicle, right? And to me, right, it looks like a drop ship or something like that, right? The ramp comes down, and
whole setting inside of what looks like it could be a drop ship. Some sort of shuttle is going and dropping them off. It's got a ramp and everything. I tried to think of what has a ramp like that, and the only thing I could think of was the I'm assuming they're called AT-ATs, but they're the big walkers, the four-legged guys.
The four-legged walkers.
Four-legged walkers. They do have a ramp on the side of them, and somewhere in the original trilogy there is a scene with that ramp down on like an elevated platform. So that could have been that. We have no idea what the inside of it is supposed to look like. There's like toys of it out there and stuff, like, you know, the ramp coming down, and those are just toys. Disney can do whatever they want. So it's not really a lot of detail. It's not really to say certain. It just opened up a question in my mind when I saw that ramp come down. I wasn't really asking if they were inside of a walker as much as are we going to get to see one, you know, because that was the first thing I thought about.
Well, my problem with this scene, right, was it's another scene that once again looks like it's kind of like fan made almost, you know, and it's like has just like a hint of like Halo-ish in it, you know, like so it shows them, right, and then it shows like one of them raising their gun, the ramp lowers, and they're getting ready to get off. Well, I could just see, like, if this was a fan-made trailer, right, it'd be real simple for them to put on some stormtrooper outfits, you know, they'd be looking forward at the scene, they'd film that, and then what they'd do is they'd cut in, like, you know, Master Chief, like, raising his gun, and then Master Chief, like, getting off of the ship, you know, with the rest of the troops, or something like that. So, it's just another scene that, when I saw it, like, I still thought I was watching, like, a fan-made trailer. I didn't think I was watching the real thing. I don't know.
Well,
and I might have been reading too much into it or something like that, but
yeah, maybe just a little bit. I mean, I didn't get the same thing out of that scene. I think by this point I was pretty convinced, but I definitely see the whole, you know, issue with the shot and everything. And again, we don't have this super epic scene, you know, there's no Transformers scene where the sun is flaring in the background as somebody does like a slow rise and the camera pans around them. The things that I did notice in this, obviously we already know about the helmets. There's been images and stills out there already of that. The other thing being the weapons. They do not look the same as they did in the original trilogy. They're newer looking. They have a new shine to them, a new design, a little bit new.
But they still look good.
They still look good. They still look good. I have no complaints about the way anything looked in this scene. I have no complaints about the scene pretty much. It's just it is what it is. But the guns are worth noting because it's just sort of goes to the whole thing. This is 30 years later. Things are going to look different. They're going to make advancements. The helmets look different, assuming they have, you know, improved on them. And so it's not a big surprise that they don't have new weapons after 30 years. Same general style, but maybe, you know, just some updated new issues.
Okay, so then that scene ends, and right now we cut to the girl. Right, and I almost want to say this is one of my favorite scenes on the trailer. She looks good. She has the appropriate clothing on. She's not wearing like some white outfit like Natalie Portman was in episode 2. She looks like she's wearing like appropriate clothing for Tatooine. Well, once again, it looks like she's on Tatooine. It looks like she's on a desert planet. So
we're hoping
it's Tatooine. Yeah, hoping. But yeah, she looks good. She gets on the the speeder thing, and that looks really good too. This goes into that gritty Star Wars-y like feeling, like it looks like a real thing. It looks like solid and like it has like grit to it.
As far as studying the scenes go, I studied that one the least, and that was because I think after the second time of actually looking at it, I was able to pass judgment and go, I have no problem with this scene. That's pretty much what I said. Just by itself, it's a good scene. But what is she doing? Where is she going? What's the urgency? That could make it a bad scene in the film. But just as it is, this was a well done scene, and I have no complaints about it at all. Barely missed it. It was.
Oh,
it would have been like. Well,
we had some banter there.
It's over 7 minutes. Yeah,
over
but
7 minutes over.
Yeah, it's over 7 minutes. Yeah, yeah, we've lost 7 minutes.
Well, try to piece together what you can. I'm not gonna make it good, okay?
Fuck the PlayStation 4 and its stupid recording system. All right, I hate its chat system. I hate its recording system. I'm putting that out there. This is going in the video. I don't care if anything else doesn't get in the video, but this is the stupidest shit I've ever had to deal with. Steam mastered the chat system like fucking 5 years ago, and we've never had a problem with that system.
More. Like
probably more.
Man,
I don't know when they finally got it through.
Steam has always been better. Steam was better than Skype. Steam has been better than all those raid chats. The mumble, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the ones that sound like you're talking through a fucking walkie-talkie and shit. They're super staticky. They chop in and out. They take up a shit ton of bandwidth. Yeah, but then Steam works every single time, is crisp, clear, and doesn't take up any space, right? Like you're no processing power at all.
People can talk at the same time.
Yeah,
people can talk over each other, which it's something that's the PlayStation got that right at least, but.
Yeah, thank God they got something right. But I mean, it's just insane to think about that. It was like. Steam's been around before the last generation of gaming, and now we're up to the PS4, and I'm still sitting here like, I wish that the fucking recording and audio system was the same as something that's been around for at least 5 years before it. It's insane.
Like, how are we digressing in capability here? Like, it's just ridiculous that you got to go into the party settings, you got to hit allow to share the voice, you got to be recording, like, and you got to be like on the freaking whatever.
This isn't like a little problem. Like, this is a huge, like, this has been a fucking thorn in our side since we've been doing this, And honestly, as soon as you can get a fucking computer, we're never using this again.
January.
Yeah, but as far as unless we're recording gameplay, I do not want to fucking use this as our chat system ever again, because this is a nightmare. It's
keep that in.
Twice. This is our second time trying to fucking record this conversation, and it's the second time it's been screwed up by the fucking PS4. It is the PS4's fault. I cannot even try to take the blame and say, oh, well, it was my fuck up. I should have been watching the clock. Whenever do you have to fucking watch the clock? Right? Like, this is the only fucking thing that ever... I should just be able to hit a record button and it just go, okay, it's now recording, right?
Yeah.
So irritating. Anyway, I guess I better hit record again before I run out of time.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
The dark side. And the light.
Okay. Now, what I call this the elephant in the room scene. This is kind of the big one. It's the one that, like, I think if you're looking at other like news articles and everything that are covering this trailer, this is the scene that the majority of people are talking about, right?
Yeah, the most comments at least.
Yeah, it's the black hooded figure, like trudging through a snowy forest and everything like this.
Was it snowy?
And yeah, it's snow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's there's snow everywhere.
Talk about the fact that I didn't pick up on anything else. You know, you're just looking at that one thing. You're like, huh.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, before I get to the object at hand here, I thought this, once again, this goes back to the whole fan-made thing. Like, it looks like somebody went out into their backyard in the middle of Michigan, you know, walked through the forest in a black hood, you know.
But as I've stated before, is I think this sort of judgment that we have on what seems almost fan-made is because we don't have a bunch of CG giant robots, you know, fighting each other or something like that in this picture, and we're so used to, if it's not an image that costed at least $1 million to make, then therefore it must be made in somebody's backyard. And it's, again, maybe there's a better way they could have shot that film, but it wasn't a bad, the actual shot itself, the camera following the person, these are not bad things. And I get the general feeling that whoever made this, this is something that I needed to note, is that whoever made this actually showed some heart. And as I said in the first attempt here,
you feel like they care.
They care,
right?
And if somebody had done this in the prequels, I would have felt a lot better about the films, even though I still would have generally hated them. I would have said, but that asshole who was working the camera, that dude has some soul right there. Yes, because he said, screw everybody else. I don't care if the writing doesn't make sense. I don't care if the storyline's stupid. I don't care if all the actors are phoning it in. I'm going to do the greatest job I can do, you know. And that's the feeling I got from this, is that that so far, well, actually through this whole thing, I'll go ahead and say it, I feel like there's some actual heart in what's being made, and people are probably sitting there, you know, going, oh my god, we could try this, like, and it's not even like, it's not a thing where like, oh, we have to do this because this will pull in audiences. It's an actual enjoyment of making the film. And yeah.
Right, because J.J. Abrams is filming this whole thing with actual film. He's using an actual film camera to film this instead of using a digital camera, and he's filming like the majority of stuff on location. He's using very little sets. I mean, obviously there's a lot of CGI. There's a lot of CGI in this trailer alone, but
it's not absurd. It's not absurd. It's not over the top. Yeah, we have actors. We have them where they clearly know where stuff is at. You know, we have the X-wing pilot who's sitting in an actual cockpit. He's not sitting in a pile of green boxes. And everything will get added in it later. Just, you know, start touching things and we'll make them buttons later. You know.
What's the whole thing where Rick, right, the on Red Relay, or maybe on Mr. Plinkett's reviews, he shows the thing of Rick, and Rick's like, it's so dense, there's so many, you know,
there's just so many things going on. Favorite thing about this, there's not a lot going on.
There has been an awakening. Have you felt it?
You refer to the prophecy of the one who will bring balance to the Force. You believe it's this boy?
He can see things. The Force is unusually strong.
What's the matter?
Anakin! Tell him to take off!
Why are you smoking? Because he hurts me.
Are you sure about this? Trusting our fate to a boy we hardly know?
Anakin Skywalker, meet Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I sense much fear in you.
The boy is dangerous. They all sense it. Why can't you?
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
So now in the scene, right, the figure like leans over and he pulls out a lightsaber. It's a red lightsaber, so we assume he's a villain. But then his lightsaber has like two side tubes, like at the hilt, and out pops two mini like lightsaber, like short lightsaber, you know, bursts. And like it's like
it's supposed to be a lightsaber.
It's supposed to be a guard. Yeah. A guard, yeah, right. That's like the design that I assume they were going for, but it's like right. The whole thing about it is if you look at the design on it, there's like the tube sticks out more than a width of a lightsaber blade, right? So the guard wouldn't technically work if you think about it, right? Because now this happened in episode 2 when Count Dooku was fighting Obi-Wan. He slides the lightsaber. Count Dooku slides the lightsaber down and hits Obi-Wan in the arm, right? And the theory is if Obi-Wan had a guard, right, that would have stopped it. But in the case of this design, Count Dooku's lightsaber would just cut through that tube that the guard is shooting out of, right?
Well, there is also the problem that it's a I mean, the blade itself is made of light. The idea of a guard, it was designed for an actual sword, and the thing is when you hit metal against metal, it bounces. There is vibrations, and it does cause both of them to have sort of a like they're trying to get away from each other. And when that happens, it doesn't mean that the object's going to bounce right off like a bouncing ball hitting the ground. It means that it's going to cause it's like they're trying to push each other away. And the person who's putting the force into it is going to sort of direct that force. So it's not going to come back to them like a bouncing ball hitting the ground. Instead, it usually would fall along the blade. It would follow the blade. Yeah. And so when it gets that bounce, instead of just going away from the blade, it follows it, and it could hit the guard. And if you don't have a guard on a regular sword, that means you're losing some fingers. And if you lose some fingers, you're losing your sword because you can't hold your sword anymore. So the idea that it'll actually slide down the blade may be a bit but obviously we kind of had that with the whole Count Dooku fight a little bit, you know, in that scene that didn't really happen. That's part of the trilogy that isn't really part of Star Wars.
Well, actually, I was reading some comments. Someone actually mentioned that the Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker fight in Empire Strikes Back, when Luke loses his hand, if he would have had a guard, that would have stopped Vader from doing the twirl maneuver that cut off Luke's hand, somebody said. Now, I didn't go back and look at this since we started talking, but...
Right. Well, I'll edit in the scene, and then people can judge, but we'll... Yeah, obviously from our point of view, we don't really know without going back and looking. So we'll let that one go for now, but that may be true, and that is a possibility, and it comes down to the point that it's impractical. It's impractical for its use.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think anybody's going to argue that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing is too, right? If this if the lightsaber fights in this movie are going to be all jumpy and flippy and choreographed like they were in episodes 1, 2, and 3, then this is even more impractical because you can just see somebody like, you know, hitting their own wrist or slicing themselves in the stomach on accident, or just it's completely impractical, especially if you go with those lightsaber fights. Now, if J.J. Abrams directs the lightsaber fights more to episodes 4, 5, and 6, right, or Empire Strikes Back and Jedi especially, where the lightsabers have a lot of weight, you know, and they're hitting each other and like they're struggling. Like you got Luke in Empire who's being like pushed around by Vader, you know, like really easily. And yeah, you had mentioned the first episodes 1, 2, and 3 felt very floaty. It felt very...
to explain that, if you look at the scene with this guy in the black, I'm going to assume he is a Jedi who has fallen to the dark side. He is actually drudging. He's hunched over a little bit. He seems a bit sort of like he's moving with his weight. His weight is moving him. And in the prequels, we saw everybody's walking upright, everybody's sort of standing on air. There just doesn't seem to be any, like, nobody weighs anything. They're all like, they're like, you know, like they're walking on pillows or clouds. They're just floating above the ground. They don't sweat. They don't have to. There's nothing like. There's no stress into actually doing things physical, right? Nothing is hard for them to do physically. They just sort of go. You know, if they need to run as fast as they can for an hour straight, they just will. Because that's how the script is written, and nobody's going to think, well, maybe they should be sweating a little bit or exhausted or, you know, something. So I get the feeling that this is going to be more grounded. These are human beings, or, you know, obviously they're space aliens, but, you know, they have these hearts that have to pump blood. Yeah, they have to breathe air to keep them alive. It's just they're going to feel more real and more tangible, and it's going to make it a much more enjoyable experience if that's true. It's no guarantee, but yeah, when you look at the original trilogy, like, and I think the best scene to describe this would be the beginning of the fight scene between Luke and Vader in Empire Strikes Back. When they first meet, you know, Luke's kind of drudging up the steps, and he's actually just, you could see it in the way he's stepping. Like, this is a heavy moment.
Yeah, and compare that to like episode 2's fight scene with Count Dooku, where they run in and they're totally ready to go, and they just, like, Anakin tries to rush in. It's just so fast, you know,
it doesn't mean anything. There's no meaning to it. It's just a fight. It's just one of the many fights that happened in the film.
So now the other thing with this scene is this is the scene where we hear the rest of the narration.
The dark side. And the light.
He chose to say the dark and the light, you know, when referencing the Force. He did not say Jedi and Sith, or Dark Jedi and Jedi, or something like that.
Yeah. The point is, in Star Wars episode 4, 5, and 6, right? Empire Strikes Back and Jedi and New Hope. In those ones, they never say Sith. Ever.
Yes.
That's not in there. It's not in the movie. That thing, that idea of a Sith didn't actually exist. In fact, in the scene where they're sitting, where the officers are all sitting around and Darth Vader chokes the guy for the lack of faith, right? You know, he mentions that it's a religion.
Don't try to frighten us with your sorcerer's ways, Lord Vader. Your sad devotion to that ancient religion has not helped you conjure up the stolen data tapes
that Darth Vader is following. So
yes,
it's not like
an organization.
It's not like this order. Yeah, it's not an organization. It's an actual, like, belief system and everything. And prior to episode 1, the fanfics and you know, the side canon, whatever, the non-canon stuff, all of that, everybody believed that Jedis were actually like crusaders, right? They were they weren't monks. You know, they didn't sit and meditate, or they did meditate, but they didn't meditate in that way. They meditated like a crusader going to the holy war would have meditated, you know. And the idea is they could still have families, right? There was fanfics where they had families and kids, and you know, they were allowed to love and everything.
No,
like that.
nobody had any grounds to believe that wasn't okay, or that was something that, oh, well, maybe they can't get married. Like, nobody ever thought that. Nobody ever even assumed that Jedis couldn't get married. Nobody assumed that they were incredibly organized. I mean, if you look at what they're based on, they're based on the Crusaders, and that is, you know, the Knights Templar.
Yeah, Knights Templar. Yeah,
playing
right.
too much Dragon Age, so I wasn't sure. I was like, wait a minute, they're the same thing, right? Yeah, they're based on the Templar Knights, and the Templar Knights, although they were sort of blessed by the church and everything like that, they were essentially,
they followed the rules of the Pope, you know, but they weren't.
They were hired out. They were sort of like these people that are saying, you're blessed, now you can go to the Holy Land, and you sort of have this rank, and people will respect this rank, right? You know, if some officer in just some standard army runs into you, he can't sit there and give you orders. You're on a special job for the church, and that is sort of how the Jedi is looked at. You are the special group of you're specialists. You have, you know, this special skill, and we don't have regular people that have these skills. You know, this is a difficult thing to learn. This is a, you know, you have to commit your life to this skill, and the Republic is just essentially asking for their help and welcoming their help and giving them sort of this special, like, you know, we're not going to really mess with you guys because we know that you guys are reliable and you support what we're doing, you know.
And yeah, that's the sense that episodes 4, 5, and 6 had. But then when episodes 1, 2, and 3 came out, you know, George Lucas changed all that.
And we suddenly need things like Sith, and for me, that is one of the biggest problems with the prequels. It's on the list. It's pretty high up there
At one point in time, you didn't even realize that until I mentioned it to you. Remember that?
The Sith thing I knew. I knew about the Sith thing. I didn't know about the Dark Jedi, because I was like, oh, well, they were Dark Jedi. And then I was like, wait a minute. And so I had to go back and check myself. And there was no mention of Dark Jedi. They were just all Jedi. They're just all Jedi, but some of them are not good guys. And the whole thing with Vader is he was never considered a Sith in the first. He was never considered a Dark Jedi. He was considered a Jedi who betrayed the Republic, right? He was supposed to be working with the
Republic and helped hunt down the other Jedis.
Right.
Is what it was said.
And we're never really clear if all the other Jedi were good people. Some of them might have also been kind of into the whole Force thing for the power. You know, maybe they were making a profit off of their abilities or something. You know, it's not. There's no certainty there, and I think that's something that George kind of preyed on, because he's like, oh, more details I can add into the universe, and adding those details really screwed things up, because it's a much greater universe when you think of it from this point of view. Agree or not, you're still wrong if you disagree. So we know that
your opinion is wrong.
Your opinion is wrong. Yes. So it is nice the fact that he didn't say Jedi and Sith. He doesn't say Dark Jedi or Jedi. He doesn't even say the word.
This new trailer.
It just doesn't even say Jedi. There's no mention of Jedi. It's just dark side and the light. And we're under the impression that he's just talking about the Force.
Or not the theory, but the hope, like the real hope that I have is Disney will scrap episodes 1, 2, and 3. It's probably not going to happen, but man, like it would fix like everything in the world. If Disney just scrapped episodes 1, 2, and 3 and said, forget that junk, you know, that's not real anymore, and goes back to, like, hopefully they don't ever mention Sith, they don't ever mention, you know, Dark Jedi or anything, say anything like that, all they're going to mention, hopefully, is there's a dark side of the Force and a light side of the Force. And because that's the only thing that, like, we have from episodes 4, 5, and 6. You know, that's what Yoda talks about. He says dark side and light side of the Force. But never mentions Sith, you know, or Dark Jedi or anything like that.
Yeah. So, that being all put aside, we still have
okay,
one more
so the last scene. Yeah, the last scene is we finally see, after the guy talks and everything, we see the Millennium Falcon, and we see, well, the camera's like upside down at first, right? So the Millennium Falcon looks like it's flying up, but then it turns out it's flying down because the camera has to flip over. Very, very J.J. Abrams like scene, like incredibly J.J. Abrams. Looks, you know, like a lot of scenes like he had in Star Trek and everything like that. But we also get to see the TIE fighters there. And the Millennium Falcon looks updated, right? Everybody's mentioning the fact that the satellite dish has been, you know, the one that it fell off technically in episode 6, right? In Return of the Jedi. Got knocked off. Yeah. And so now it's replaced with a square one or something like that.
Yeah, slightly different looking, but
it looks like it's got a paint job and stuff like that. I mean, you know, but it still looks like the classic Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, it's still the Millennium Falcon. It's not, you know, it's not changing anything. It has been 30 years. I think in 30 years they could have saved up the money to put a new radar satellite on there and give it a good wash. You know, maybe a new paint job and I don't know.
So, well, the other interesting thing about this scene, and this is with all the scenes in the whole trailer, is none of them take place in space. They all take place on the ground, right? Or near the planet or everything like that. We're seeing, in this case, it looks like they're flying over Tatooine because it's a desert with the Millennium Falcon. So the idea is, and I was saying that this could be really interesting. It's a different twist, you know, having ground battles, you know, where they're flying. The only one we ever saw in all the other Star Wars movies was Hoth. Hoth was like the only one that had a, you know, but at the end of that battle, they had to get out of those fighters in order to get into an X-wing to fly away, right? Luke has to get out of that in order. Yeah. So that's not a ship that can go space and ground. Where now we're seeing the Millennium Falcon, the X-wings, and the TIE fighters all near the ground, you know, getting ready for attack runs and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's. I'm sure it's going to be situational that brought them down like that, but it is nice, and it will be interesting to see how that plays out. I think that judging, just sort of like, you know, shooting in the dark here, as to what that all means, is that we're not seeing a giant space station that can blow up planets anymore. What we're looking at is we're looking at sort of like a guerrilla warfare kind of thing. I assume that the rebellion, which is probably no longer a rebellion, but they may have some pull with planets. You know, they got a lot of backing and everything. They probably have more power than the actual Empire does at this point, making the Empire no longer even an empire. But they're probably still receiving money, and they're probably still trying to seize, you know, control what they once had as much as possible, if they have anything anymore. But it's going to be down to, you know, fighter pilots fighting other fighter pilots, dogfights. And then we're going to have something in there involving lightsabers, because, you know, we have to. Clearly it's already visible. Yeah.
See, you brought up something interesting. I wonder if they're, because we were talking earlier about them scrapping episodes, you know, 1, 2, and 3. What if they, like, don't even show, like, Coruscant, or they don't show any big cities, or no big populated. I know, yeah, right. Like it's a very good possibility based on this trailer. You know, you're not seeing anything like that. It's very gritty, very, you know, grounded. It looks like much more like the
very grounded, not far-fetched, not something that audiences are going to not want to see. Because one of the biggest problems that the prequels had, and something that we didn't mention the first time we tried to make this video, is one of the big problems with the prequels is before the prequels everybody was a Star Wars fan. You're not a nerd, you weren't a weirdo, you weren't
because it was so popular.
Or anything. It was just something everybody could enjoy. Everybody could enjoy Star Wars. Everybody liked Han Solo. Everybody liked the whole Jedi thing. Everybody liked watching the space battles and the explosions and stuff like that. It was for everyone.
You could relate to the characters. You could relate to what was going on.
It looks like Abrams knows what he's doing here to some degree, at least. I don't expect this to be terrible, and I'm not really sure how great it's going to be. I expect to leave it with a smile on my face and saying it's worth the money. You know, will it live up to the older versions? Probably not. It's not going to live up to the original trilogies. I just want it to be better than the prequels, and that's really not asking a lot.